Archie, I keep hearing about RMDs. Is that really something to worry about?
Well, Jimmy, that's a simple question with a complicated answer. Let's dive in. I'm Archie Hoxton.
And I'm Rob Hoxton.
And this is Last Paycheck, weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. Welcome back to the Last Paycheck Podcast, brought to you by Hoxton Planning and Management. I'm your host, CFP professional Archie Hoxton, and today we've got a very special guest, and who you'll probably be seeing a lot more of. That's Jimmy Sutch. He is one of our advisors here at Hoxton Planning and Management, also our partner, and potentially new show host in addition to Rob and I.
My office is right next to the studio, so they finally invited me over, so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I think it'll be a lot of fun and bring some new perspective to the show. So today, we're going to be talking about required minimum distributions. This is a topic that comes up a lot with clients. It's a common problem that people are trying to solve, and a good problem to have most of the time. But, it's kind of like, what is it? What do you do about it? Should you do anything about it? That's what we're going to dive into today.
So Archie's going to be a little bit nicer than I am, but I often tell clients that it's Uncle Sam finally coming to knock at your door and say, hey, it's time to pay up, right?
Yeah.
So you hear Archie and I and our fearless leader, Rob, often tell people, save 401ks, traditional IRAs. But at some point, you got to, pay the piper, as they say.
Yeah. I mean, you've had this long runway of accumulating dollars and compounding without paying taxes. So yeah, this is where Uncle Sam comes in and says, all right, you've had enough. It's time to pay up. And, it's really simple. It's calculated by, taking your year-end balance and dividing it by, it's just a number that it's based on life expectancies. And they take that and divide it, and boom, whatever comes out is the number that you actually have to pay.
And it's been nice recently. The government has been gracious enough to, with longevity and people living a little bit longer, they've been increasing the age in terms of when it's first required. So a couple of years ago, it was 70 and a half. Then it went to 72, and luckily enough, it's now 73.
Yeah,
right?
And it's going to 75.
Right.
So that is generous, and hopefully we'll continue to see that happen. But I think, when most people do, if they're good savers, they've spent most of their life, packing away dollars into 401ks, IRAs, and not really thinking about how that, that could be creating a pretty significant tax liability in the future. Because again, it's good. It's a good behavior. It's a good habit to be putting money away. But, most people don't even think about a required distribution until their late 60s, sometimes a little earlier. But
well, and it's important to understand the benefit of tax-deferred savings too, right? So the concept with pre-tax money is you're sheltering money at a higher tax bracket and deferring the taxes to a lower one.
right, yeah,
Right? So over time, that's very, very impactful and meaningful to savers. And sometimes in retirement, right, this can also become an issue too, because the federal government requires you to pay up at some point. That age is 73, like we had talked about.
Where this can kind of become a problem for people is if that account gets to a pretty significant size, and maybe you were a really diligent saver and you invested well and you got a lot of compounding, you started early. It is possible that your required distribution could actually land you in a higher tax bracket than you were when you were initially saving and earning income. We've seen that happen. That's possible. And because at the same time, you're also receiving Social Security. Maybe you've got a pension. And so, or maybe you even work part-time or something just to,
And that was the point, right? So these super savers, oftentimes, Archie, Rob, and I don't find RMDs to be a huge problem, right? Because a lot of people are saving for 25, 30 years, and then you depend on that money, whether it's in a Roth IRA or traditional IRA, you depend on that money to supplement your income.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, oftentimes RMDs don't become a huge problem because you need the money to live.
Right.
When we see it become an issue is we call them super savers, or people with a few different streams of income, and they've sheltered this money into a pre-tax account, and they don't need the money for income.
Yeah.
And then those big distributions can impact taxes on Social Security income,
Right.
Medicare premiums, because that's all income tax based. So it's important. And then a lot of people, those super savers and the people that are lucky enough to have this problem, oftentimes ask us how to avoid RMDs.
Right. Or at least kind of reduce the impact in some way. Because, it's not crazy to all of a sudden you get there and your RMD is a six-figure number.
Right.
If you've been really, really, really saving hard. So, that can be a problem. So there's a few things that you can do about it. And some of them you kind of have to plan pretty far in advance. So that really applies more if you're quite a bit younger and you're thinking about retirement, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And some of them are, what do you do like really close and then like in the year that you've actually got to take the RMD. And so we'll talk about a few different strategies to manage that. The first one that I think of is for really long-term planning is diversifying your tax buckets, right? Maybe you don't just only contribute to pre-tax. Maybe you put some of that towards Roth. Maybe that's available in your 401k, or maybe you open a Roth IRA and divert some of the funds to the Roth IRA. There's no RMD on a Roth IRA. And maybe even put some in a taxable account, to kind of build up something that's less constrained, and it doesn't have any tax benefits, but it doesn't have any constraints either.
Right. Yeah. You can kind of get ahead of the game a little bit with, especially young people and people in modest tax brackets, which are a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're not on the upper end of kind of the tax schedule there, you can kind of fight this before it even starts, right?
Yeah.
You can contribute to Roth IRAs. A lot of employer 401k plans now actually allow you to contribute after, Roth dollars in the plan. So that's kind of a way to get in front of it.
Yeah. And then
opinion.
you've got control, right? You can, if you, with RMDs, you don't have a choice in having to realize income and pay taxes. But if you have a smaller RMD, all the other income that you want to take for your retirement needs, you control. You're in the driver's seat of how much tax you want to pay and what kind of income you want to realize. So we're always recommending that if you've got a long runway, diversify. Don't just put it all into one bucket.
And again, an RMD is a great problem to have, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it means you've saved a lot. You have other streams of income. You kind of live within your means, and you don't need your distributions from this tax advantaged account. So
Right.
it is a beautiful problem to have if you get there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And there are definitely times where, and we'll get to this, but where it's like, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do much about it. But let's talk about some of the kind of shorter term. Let's say maybe you're much closer to RMD age. What can you do in that?
Yeah, we
that
talk about
situation?
this almost in a lot of client meetings these days, but Roth conversions, right?
Yeah.
Especially prior to RMD age, because once you get to 73, they actually make you take your required minimum distribution prior to the conversion. So oftentimes, we'll take a look, we'll put it into the financial plan, we'll strategize a little bit about it, and then come up with a 5, 6, 7 year time frame in terms of an amount and how much we want to convert on an annual basis, and cover the tax bill each year to avoid future RMDs.
Yeah, yeah. And so the beauty of that is that for one, maybe in that period, you're in a lower, maybe your income is lower than it's ever been and ever will be between when you retire and when you have required distributions. So you have this opportunity to, again, take control and recognize some income, pay some taxes, but shelter those dollars for the rest of your life and 10 years into your heirs' lives from taxes.
Yeah, and on the other side of the coin, we do see sometimes where we talk about a Roth conversion because, it's the new thing, everybody's talking about it, but it doesn't make sense because that person happens to be in a high tax bracket already.
Right.
Right. So we do see both sides of the coin, frankly.
Yeah. Like this is definitely not a blanket, piece of advice or anything, but a potential solution to a good problem to have. And so, yeah, I mean, it's something to consider. And we've done videos on Roth conversions in the past. Check those out if you want to learn more about what actually is Roth conversion entails. There is another really awesome way to manage an RMD, and it's another acronym, QCD, which we've talked about on the show also, but it stands for Qualified Charitable Distribution.
Love them.
Yeah, so, when you reach RMD age, the IRS says, okay, you have to take this money out of the account and you have to pay taxes on it. Except for one exception. If you donate that money directly from the IRA to the charity, you can't take possession of that money and then send it to the charity. It's got to go from IRA to charity, and you can't, be in the middle of that. And if you do, it's not taxable. So what a lot of people will do is if they are already giving to charity and that's something that enriches their lives and they hit RMD age, they'll just take, instead of giving in the collection basket or, writing a check to their favorite charity, they just send it right from their IRA. And maybe you cover part of your RMD, maybe you cover all of it. But in that case, you're not paying tax on your required distribution at all for each dollar that goes to the charity. So that's a way to actually wipe out your entire RMD tax liability, if you're someone who wants to give to charity.
Yeah, I think that helps a lot of the people where this actually does become a problem, right? The people where this does become a problem are people that have saved in excess, right? Which is a good problem. And
Right.
So oftentimes those people become a little bit more charitable because they have over and above what they need in retirement.
Yeah.
So this is a beautiful way to give your money to meaningful institutions that, change lives and people enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's awesome. It's important. And, if that's something that you're already doing or you want to start doing, and, qualified charitable distributions, you don't have to actually wait until required distribution age, which is now 73. You become eligible at 70 and a half. For whatever reason, they didn't change the qualified charitable distribution age
Right.
when they changed the RMD age.
Right.
Just they wanted to, just make it 70 at least.
Does that surprise you?
No. Unfortunately not. So anyway, those are a couple ideas for managing the RMD based on how much time you have to plan.
Yeah, the question I'll ask, right, is like, and I think I keep harping on this, but does it always become a problem and should you always worry about it? I'm not so sure that's the case, right?
I don't think so.
Right.
I think so. Let's talk about a couple of these solutions that we brought up. Let's say you're 68, you're looking 5 years down the road at an RMD, and you look at these two options for, managing the RMD. If you want to do a Roth conversion, you're going to pay more tax up front. That's a sort of a long-term play. It's reducing your required distribution, and it's also building up a long-term tax-free bucket. But it takes a while to actually break even on that. It might take 10 years, depending on how much you convert, to kind of get back and recover that from the taxes you paid up front. That doesn't always make sense, you know?
Yeah, and we've had clients ask us sometimes, hey, should I save outside of an IRA or save outside of a qualified retirement plan in a brokerage account to avoid RMDs? And, oftentimes the answer is no. It's like the benefits of saving in a tax-deferred way, oftentimes make up for the taxes that you owe at the end.
Yeah,
right? So
for sure.
Don't not save in IRAs and
Yeah.
qualified plans just because at some point you think you're going to have an RMD. I think for the vast majority of people that are saving, the RMD doesn't become an enormous problem.
Yeah, and sometimes it actually creates a really simple way to manage your retirement income, where let's say you saved in a 401k and you saved enough to be able to create enough income to supplement with Social Security. Maybe your RMD is exactly how much, or right in the ballpark of what you need to take out to live on. You just keep it simple.
And ironically enough, you hear about this 4% rule of thumb distribution rate. The year in which you turn 73, the RMD is somewhere right around that number.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, too. So
Yeah, and then you get a little inflation bump every year. Most years, your RMD is going to get higher.
right.
And the years where it's highest are also the years where you've had the most time for the investments to compound and grow. So yeah, I mean, it's not always a problem.
Not always.
So anyway, we're running up on time here. So I hope this was really interesting and enjoyable. Hopefully you got some interesting ideas about dealing with RMDs. If you like the show, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your family and friends, hit the bell for notifications, and leave us a comment. We want to hear your thoughts and questions about these topics.
Yeah, let us know if you guys have any topics you're interested in hearing us talk about. We'd love to hear them in the comments. So
Yeah.
let us know.
Awesome. Well, thanks. We'll see you next time. You've been watching Last Paycheck, weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. If you like this show, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Last Paycheck is available anywhere you get your podcasts.